Hi friends, welcome back to the second section of Production and Employment, our third chapter discussion. Now let us look about the changes in the importance of sectors, the value of goods and services produced, and change of employment. In this section we are going to discuss about how the GDP has been changed over the time. What are the factors contributed for the growth of the GDP? So far, we know that the GDP has been growing. And let us think, what are the factors contributing to the growth of the GDP? And it is essential to know how this development in the GDP has been achieved and what are the factors which is contributing to the growth of the GDP. It has been noted that many of the now developed countries, agriculture and other allied activities as the most important contributor of their GDP, while those countries beginning to achieve the development. In simply we can say that the present developed countries, before they were achieving the development or at the beginning of the process of development, they considered the agricultural sector as the main contributor of their development. That means once the country got its development, the agriculture no more becomes the major contributor of the GDP. The agricultural production of every country is one of the basic requirement, and simply we can say that the agricultural production is the backbone behind the development of every country. At present, we have changed the method of agriculture. Comparing to last few decades, the method of agriculture has been developed drastically, and we use much modern technologies and modern machineries we use for the agricultural purpose. Some years before, we were just using the bullocks for plowing the land and all sort of agricultural process like seeding, weeding, harvesting, threshing, and everything was done by manually. But at present, the situation has changed and we used machine. And also the use of high yield variety seeds help us to produce more crops in a small amount of land. When the essential food requirement had been met, now the people are no more need to worry about the agriculture. Now they can engage in other activities like business or trading, and such activities they can involve. As the essential food requirement had been met by other producers, there were an increasing of people who engaged in craft work or other sorts of business and trading, buying and selling. Such activities the people began to involve. Now people start working as rulers, administrators, armies, and etc. Different types of service activities and also the industrial production activities that the people taken up. However, in the initial stage of development, most of their needs met, and the productions they were produced in relation to the agriculture and the related sector. And the more people who were employed in the agricultural sector, the most people who were employed was in the agricultural sector. In the previous classes we have discussed about the Industrial Revolution. Do you remember about the Industrial Revolution? With the Industrial Revolution, a new method of manufacturing was introduced. There were many factories established and developed. The working of factories and the production all over the countries. The people who were earlier working in the agricultural sector, when as the factories are developed, changed from the agricultural sector to the factories, and they started working in factories in large numbers. As a result of factories and the production, there become a pool of different types of goods to the market, and the people also started using different types of products. As a result of the development of factory and the increasing of production, there is a mass production of goods taken place, and the goods produced by the markets were pooled in the local market and also nationally and internationally. For many countries, the industrial sector becomes the most important sector gradually. Now, more people began to work in industries, and also the industries becomes the sector which contributed to the more production, the production of goods and services. Therefore, we can say that there is a shift took place over the time. In the beginning, we have discussed that agriculture was the important sector for all those developed countries at the beginning. But once they achieved the development and industrial revolution, the importance of sector have been shifted from the agricultural sector to the industrial sector. The importance of agriculture, both for the production and employment, also declined. And simply we can say that as the result of the industrial revolution, the development of industries, the importance of the agricultural sector had been changed. Before, the agriculture was the primary important sector, whereas after the development of the industrial revolution and the factories, the shift has been changed to the industrial sector. In the past 50 years, there has been again another shift. Another shift has taken place from the industrial sector to the service sector. Especially it happened to the developed countries. Now the service sector become the most important sector for the production. And most of the working people also shifted from the manufacturing sector to the service sector. And this is a general pattern observed in most of the developed countries. The shift of agricultural sector to the manufacturing sector, and from manufacturing sector to the service sector. Does our sectors of activity change from agriculture to manufacturing and manufacturing to service? Look at the pie chart given in page number 34. In this, we can see the contribution of the various activities to the GDP, which is presented for 2 financial years, that is 1972 to 73 and 2009 to 2010. The pie chart represents the GDP in the given year, and the GDP is made up of production from the 3 sectors: agriculture, industry and service. The service sector further divides into 3 types, such as community, social and personal services, finance, insurance and real estate, and trade, hotels, transport and communication. When we observe the pie chart, we can understand that during the 37 years period, the production in agriculture has fallen drastically. In contrast to all these, there is a tremendous increase in the service activities. 2 out of 3 subsectors in the service activities have expanded. That means in last 37 years, the agricultural sectors not developed and the industrial sector achieved a little bit development, whereas the service sector developed very much. Now we are going to discuss about employment, the working life in India. The GDP, or the gross domestic production, has a close relation with the total number of working people in the country. In every country, as the population is increasing, it is very much essential that the government need to take initiative to provide the employment opportunity for its people. That it is one of the responsibility of the government to provide adequate employment facilities. If the people having no job and no income, then how they will survive? It is very difficult for the people to survive without a job and an income. Unless the people get a job for earning income, how do they get food and other requirements? According to the census of India taken in 2011, out of 1.2 billion people in India, 460 million people are working. That is, the people who are engaged in some sort of productive activities. Here is a table in page number 35, table 1, which is showing about the basic factors of workers in India. This table shows about the distribution of workers in India in the year 2009 to 2010. The basic sectors like agriculture, industry and service sector, the number of people worked is mentioned in this table. So unfortunately in this table we can see that in India, while there has been the changes taken place in the other 3 sectors and the GDP, there is no similar shift taken place in the employment. If we observe the graph 3 from page number 36, we can see that the share of employment in the 3 sector in the year 1972 to 73 and 2009 to 10. We can see that the agriculture continues to be the largest employer even now. Why didn't the employment shift out of agriculture? The answer is simple. It happened because there is no enough jobs created in the industries and service sector. In this period of 37 years, even though the production of industrial goods went up by 9 times, the employment opportunities went up only by 3 times. The time between 1972 to 2010, the 37 years, in the industrial sector, the production increased by 9 times, whereas in the provision of employment, the opportunity of making employment went up only by 3 times. The same thing happened even to the service sector. Even in the service sector also, the production rose up by 14 times, whereas it created the opportunity of employment only 5 times. When the production rose up, increased around 14 times, the job opportunity created in the service sector was only 5 times. As a result, more than half of the working people employees in the agricultural sector, and these half of the employers contribute 1/6 of the GDP. In contrast to this, the industry and the service sector producing more than 3/4 of the GDP. We have to think that half of the working people of our country is working in the agricultural sector and producing only 1/6 of the GDP, whereas the other half of the working people work splitting into these two groups, the industry and the service sector, and with the half portion of the employees working in these two sections, it produces 3/4 of the total GDP. Does it mean that the workers in agriculture are not producing as much as they are? In fact, we can say that since the agricultural sectors constitute half of the working people of our country, the production is comparatively very less than of the industries and the service sectors. It happens because of the underemployment situation in the agricultural sector. That means there are more people in agricultural sector, but they are not fully occupied. Though half of the working population is employed in the agriculture sector, they are not fully engaged like a worker in a factory or in a service sector. Even if half of the people or a few people move out of agriculture, nothing is going to happen to the production. The production will be still the same. In other words, we can say that the workers in agriculture sector are underemployed. What do you mean by underemployed? Underemployed means having an occupation or having an employment but not fully occupied. Such situation is known as the underemployment. Here is an example of a family, Gayatri and her family. She has 2 hectares of land in which she is growing jowar and red gram. She totally depends upon the rain for the agriculture. All the 5 members of the family is looking after the agricultural activities. All of the 5 members are engaged in the agricultural activities all through the years. Why they have nowhere else to go for work? We can see that everyone is working, no one stand idle. But the actual fact is that their labor is get divided. That means not all these 5 people are fully engaged in the agricultural activities. When few people work, others take rest. Sometimes 1 or 2 person works while others are not engaged in the activities. But if the work is get divided, each one is doing some sort of job but not fully engaged. This type of situation is meant by underemployment. What is underemployment? We discussed already. Underemployment means that a person having a job but not fully engaged, like in the family of Gayatri. Here 5 are engaged in their own agricultural land, but any of them are fully engaged with their work. Such situation is known as the underemployment. And this situation is just an opposite to unemployment. And there is a difference between underemployment and unemployment. Underemployment means there is a job but it is not fully occupied, whereas unemployment means that person having no job at all. Such situation is known as unemployment. So having a job is better than having no job. Hence, the underemployment also called as the disguised employment because it is not engaging a person fully occupied with the job, but it having only, maybe simply we can say, a job for a part of the time. So it is also called as the disguised employment. The underemployment is also called as the disguised employment. Suppose a landlord hires two members of Gayatri's family. When they work outside to another landlord, it helps them to increase their income. Even if these two people get out of their family agriculture, nothing is going to happen. It will indeed contribute to their family income. When these two people went out for working, they also contribute their family income by getting the wages from their work. Since they five are not required for looking after the agricultural activities, when two people move out of their land, nothing will affect the production of agriculture. In this example, if again two more people move to work in some factories or some industries, again it will trigger the contribution of their income to the family. So, without affecting the agricultural production, when the people work outside, it will help them in the contribution of their family income. Likewise, there are many people in India working in the agricultural sector like Gayatri. If they provide a better employment opportunity elsewhere, it will be a great support and a contribution to their family and income. Nothing will be affecting to the agricultural production. Even the same amount of production can be harvested from the agricultural sector, whereas the income of the people who work outside will contribute to their family income. We are just now talking about the underemployment situation of agricultural sector. This same situation of underemployment even can also take place in the other two sectors, in the industry and even in the service sectors. For example, there are many casual workers employed in the service sectors, especially in the urban areas. The cities like Visakhapatnam or Vijayawada or Hyderabad or Chennai, big cities, there are many casual laborers who are searching for daily employment. They employed as painters, plumbers, repair person and or other odd type of jobs. But they were not having jobs on a daily basis. Once if they get a job, they need to again wait for some more days for getting another working day. So, though they are in the service sector in urban areas, they are not fully occupied with their jobs. Similarly, we see also another group of people in service. The people like rickshaw pullers and street vendors, cart pullers, they were all working in the service sector, but they are not fully occupied, or in other words, though they work but they are not earning adequate. They earn very little. They are doing this type of job because they do not have any other opportunity. We discussed that the service sector is growing. Even though the service sector is growing, not all the sectors of service is growing. We can see that different kinds of people engaged in the service sector activities in India. In one end, we can see that a limited number of people with highly educated and skilled people working in the service sector, whereas in the other end we can see the people who were like shopkeepers, repair persons, transport persons, etc. And these people are managing very little to earn for their livelihood. Even though they earn only very little, these people are engaged in this service activity because they do not have any other alternatives. Since they do not have any other way of earning a livelihood, these people are just engaged with such service activities for their survival. Therefore, we can say that only a part of the service sector is growing in its importance, whereas the other part is not growing much. Now let us talk about the organized and unorganized sector of employment in India. So far we were discussing about how the three different sectors contributing to the GDP. And also we realized the importance of these three sectors. And also we have discussed about the shift that took place in the employment sectors and even in the production and employment. We saw that there is no much shift took place in the employment in our country. And here, to understand the change in employment sectors, we use another classification based on the nature of the employment. The classification discussed below is emphasizing the problem of employment and the associated condition of work. In that we are going to see mainly about the employment sectors. That we are going to discuss about the two employment sectors, namely the organized and the unorganized sectors. So please don't be confused with what we discussed before and now. In both places we are encountering with sector. So it should not make any sort of confusion. So before we were discussing about the sectors of economy, and now we are going to discuss about the sectors of employment. What are the different sectors of economy? The first one is agriculture, second one is industry or manufacturing, third one is the service. Now we are going to talk about the sector of employment. Here we are going to talk about the organized sector and the unorganized sectors. Here is an example of two persons, Narasimha and Rajeshwari. Narasimha is a government employer. He works in a government office. His working time is from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And there is a distance of 5 kilometers from his house to office. He used to travel by his own bike. He gets a regular salary at the end of every month, and the salary is credited to his bank account. Apart from the salary, he also gets providence fund as per the rule by the government. He also gets medical and other allowances. And Sunday he no need to go to the office. Sunday he having a paid holiday. At the time of his joining, he has given an appointment letter which is mentioning about all these terms and conditions. Whereas Rajeshwari, she is working as a construction worker and she has to travel around 8 to 10 kilometers by bus. She goes for her work by 7 a.m. and finishes her work and return home by 7 p.m. The persons who are engaged in the construction work, they usually get only 1 hour rest between 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. That is for having their lunch. In a month, Rajeshwari get only 10 to 12 days of working. In other days, she may not have any work and any wages also. If she work, she used to earn rupees 150 in a day. Mostly she is paid the wages on the spot on that evening. If she having 2 or 3 days work, sometime the wages may get after the work finished. And she may get works only from February to June. July to January is considered as the off-seasonal for the work. Rajeshwari is a member of a self-help group in her locality. The government pays some compensation for death or any sort of major injuries while at the work. If it small type of accidents, the government will not pay any sort of compensation. She is also a part of a group of people working under a mason. And under a mason, sometimes there are 6 to 10 people are working. Narasimha and Rajeshwari is an illustrative example of the people who are working in organized and unorganized sectors. Can you find out the difference between these two sectors in every aspect, even in the aspect of wages and the facilities and the provisions? In every aspect, there is a difference in the organized and unorganized sectors. And 92% of the people in India is employed in the unorganized sector, and only 8% of people are working in the organized sector.